Segment 3, Gold and Black Live, and Brian Neubert joins us, and we've talked a lot every week, and by this time of the week, it seems like we've talked the game out. We'll start with Purdue, Nebraska, and obviously Brian will be covering Purdue men's basketball, too, in the exhibition against University of Southern Indiana tonight in Mackey Arena. But I'll start, Tom, with you, and it's an interesting deal with Purdue because the Boilermakers sitting at 2-6 right now. On paper, they still have a chance for the postseason, but you almost, if you're Jeff Brom and company, have to define, all right, what do we want to get done from now till the end of the season? What is that in your view?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So much youth has already been injected on this roster, Alan. A matter of just continuing to develop that young talent. I think, listening to Brian talk about it too, these guys weren't intending to play this much this early, but here we are. In a lot of ways, it's almost like a spring practice. These guys getting their baptism by fire early, and just continuing to develop those guys. The offensive line in particular, and Jack Plummer, the redshirt freshman quarterback. Like you said, there's still the opportunity to win out here and go to a bowl. There's challenges, you like their chances Saturday. You go to Northwestern, you go to Wisconsin, you have IU at home. Again, you got to win all four, but can Purdue win in Madison? That could be tough. But first things first, Nebraska, and guys, I think that's a game you'd like to think Purdue has a decent chance to win.
Yeah. Obviously, if Purdue wins out here, they can go to a bowl game. They've been in this position before,
yeah.
Obviously, with their having to win out to do that. I don't know if that's necessarily how you define success this season. Obviously, you'd like to. Whether that's realistic, perhaps is the right word, I don't know. I think the rest of the way, you would like to get some clarity at quarterback. You'd like to find out what Elijah Sindelar's what's going to happen with him moving forward. If that's not going to be in the cards for next season,
yeah.
I think you would like to see Jack Plummer come along, and if maybe you don't like what you see there, act accordingly on that, because you can start at least thinking ahead to next year, and you're going to have a year of Rondell Moore and David Bell together, and you would like to maximize that, and in order to maximize that, you have to have pretty solid quarterback play. So I think that's an important element to here the rest of the way in terms of what you take the rest of the way this year into what it means for your future moving forward.
Yeah, how much? And we talked about obviously the recruiting class coming in, pretty highly regarded. Brian, I'll ask you this in terms of Jeff Brom has talked about. He's definitely infused more talent in each of the last three classes, especially. What's missing? You still need offensive and defensive linemen, which are always tough to get. But the talent level here bodes well for down the road.
Yeah, but I also think this season, on top of the injuries, has kind of shined a light on some things you need to get better at right away. I don't think anybody would look at it any other way. You got to get better at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So what Purdue does in recruiting from here on out, I think you're going to see. You've already seen a shift, and I don't know if this is going to be a one-off situation or what they'll do every year, and they've done the prior 2 years is try to get some immediate help too here the rest of the way. You're going to look at the graduate transfers on the offensive line, you're going to look at junior college players on the defensive line. Wherever you can get people who can help you right away at the line of scrimmage, I think Purdue is going to be all in on, because even if Purdue is fully healthy with what it's projected to have next season, there are still areas of this team that are difficult to look at as strengths. That have been underscored by some of the results of this season.
Yeah, no question on that. How do you view, in terms of the play of Jack Plummer, and obviously Jeff Brom went ahead and said, after the game, he said it was open competition. He switches that on Monday to say that Jack Plummer's the guy. What have you seen out of Jack, and also what have you seen out of Jeff Brom in terms of maybe a slight tweak in his approach with his young guys?
Well, I think his message this week was to have some fun.
Yeah.
Maybe have everybody take a more loose and free approach, which could be a good thing. As far as Plummer, Allen, he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
Redshirt freshman we talked about from Gilbert, Arizona, knows the playbook, learned it almost right when he got here.
Yeah.
To the point where he was so good at it, he was teaching guys like David Bell the offense this summer. But it's still a work in progress. When they flip the lights on Saturday, everything's moving faster. I don't think the game's totally slowed down for him yet. We know that happens with experience.
Yeah.
Coach Brom talks about sometimes he'll drift in the pocket. Sometimes he'll hold the ball too long. Can have problems reading all of his progressions. And there's some points where, if it's not there, use your feet and run. Because for a guy who's 6'5", 220 pounds. He's still pretty mobile and can run. I think Jeff Rom would like to see him use his feet more often. But I think Brian talked about it too. This is a kid I think that's got some potential. And is he the answer moving forward? We'll see. But I tell you what, he looks like a heck of a starting point for him.
Yeah, good place to start, it seems. And you would think if on a dry track tomorrow, maybe you can get back to throwing the football. None of us are complete experts on Nebraska, but we've watched Scott Frost's team also struggled more than some had anticipated this year. You wrote up the data driven on Nebraska, but is it a huge deal that Adrian Martinez plays tomorrow from your perspective? I mean, they've got two other guys that played very well last week and offensively against IU.
Well, I think it's a big deal in the sense that he's a guy who can make big plays as a runner. I think it's going to be another situation where if he plays, could be a situation where you want him to have to beat you in the passing game. I thought last week was going to be one of those weeks, and I thought last week's game was going to be a lot like Maryland.
Yeah.
And I think that had the weather been okay, I think the result might have been maybe not quite as emphatic, but the same sort of outcome. Now, I think Nebraska's a little bit better than Illinois and Maryland, but I do think if it's Adrian Martinez, you obviously want him in the pocket and you want him probably beating you in the passing game. That might require, being relatively stout against the run too, which is a really hard balance to strike and one Purdue has struggled with defensively over the years. But I do think if it's Martinez, you want him having to beat you with his arm. Whoever the quarterback is, pressure is of paramount importance here because you have to make them uncomfortable. You have to make them make difficult throws, and you have to make them do things they don't want to do.
Yeah. And how do you view when you look at Nebraska and what Purdue will see tomorrow from the Cornhuskers?
I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think we're going to see over 60 combined points, maybe close to 70 combined points. I think both defenses are going to struggle to stop the other offense. To Brian's point about Adrian Martinez, fans remember last year in Lincoln, he threw for over 300 yards, ran for 91 yards on 18 carries. The guy's a dynamic playmaker and can throw the football. J.D. Spielman's a good deep threat. Of course, one player everybody's been talking about this week for Nebraska is Wandale Robinson.
Yeah.
Frankfort, Kentucky kid who Purdue recruited extremely hard. He and Rondale Moore are friends. They share the same trainer. Very dynamic playmaker. Has been working at running back for the Cornhuskers. They want to get him the ball as often as they can. So watch him. And then again, to Purdue's offense, we know the struggle is there, but this is a Nebraska defense that can be pretty generous. Talking to people who cover the team, they really struggled to stop IU last week.
No,
the short passing game, the back end of that defense, the linebackers in particular, struggle to cover. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to throw the ball quickly to guys like Bryson Hopkins, and maybe he can have a game like he did against Maryland just a few weeks ago, and I think he had 10 catches for 140 yards.
Yeah. All right, two things that will happen tomorrow. I think they're both going to be there. Whether one may play and one definitely won't play. But Drew Brees will be in town tomorrow, and that's always a big deal for Purdue. That's a fun thing. Rondale Moore, any chance? I can't have an over and under. Any chance he's going to play tomorrow? I mean, Jeff's.
Yeah, we talked after practice yesterday amidst the swirling snow and freezing temperatures.
On Halloween, of all things.
Jeff said, he's making progress, but he still has a, quote, ways to go. He was pretty short, didn't offer much beyond that, so sounded a little cryptic. Probably, I would say, not going to see him, but you never know. He's certainly not going to tip his hand. It's been over a month now, right?
Yeah.
September 28th, he got hurt against Minnesota. So if you go by what Brom said on Thursday, that would lead me to think, no, we will not see number 4. But stay tuned.
Yeah, Drew Brees coming to town. I mean, you've been covered and been around since he played. What's that mean? I mean, it's a big. It seems to me it's a big deal to have his presence here.
It just speaks to the fact that this is a guy who has been engaged with Purdue football for a very long period of time when he didn't have to be. This is a guy who did not have to associate himself with terrible football.
Yeah.
And he remained around Purdue during the darkest days of Purdue football, some of the worst football in school history. This is a guy who has a brand and doesn't need to associate himself with anything other than excellence. And he remained around Purdue even when things were atrocious, really bad. And it just speaks to how much he values his relationship with his alma mater and just how much he's done for Purdue.
Yeah.
When a lot of situations where Purdue, how much could Purdue do for him when things were really bad? Just a really kind of unique deal. This is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play football, and for him to stay engaged with his alma mater after all this time, after everybody he knew at Purdue for the most part has moved on to other things, if not moved on altogether, really speaks to how much he values his relationship with his alma mater. Really kind of a special deal.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. You can't minimize the fact that he's going to be in the stands, in my view, as well. All right, I want to go back to you, Brian, because you've got the start of your march through basketball, so to speak, tonight. The Boilermakers against the University of Southern Indiana. We just have a couple minutes, and we have full preview podcast out there and lots of writing about this. But what are you looking for tonight? Because it's going to be interesting to see how the pieces of this team come together.
And an earlier tip-off time on a Friday night for an exhibition would be nice. But,
8 o'clock start, right?
Yeah.
Talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
I think offensively, there's going to be a lot of processes involved for this team. You're not going to get a good look at what they are at this point because Joe Eastern's not going to play. And he is a big part of what they're going to do offensively and defensively and on the glass and pretty much everything else. But it will be interesting to see just what Purdue looks like because I think they're going to be very different offensively. And I don't just mean the personnel, I mean how they go about doing things. I think it'll be interesting to see how they get Matt Harms and Travion Williams the ball, how they feature those guys because that's where emphasis now shifts. You go from as guard-oriented an offense as you can possibly imagine to something much more similar, but still very different to when Hammonds and Isaac Haas and Caleb Swanigan were at Purdue. These are very different big men than those guys, but the emphasis, is going to go toward them. So it'll be interesting to see just what they do to get those guys involved. But also, there's a lot of young guys on this team, and by young I mean sophomores and freshmen. For the freshmen, you want to see which guys can help them now, if will any of them redshirt too is a question that'll get answered tonight or in the days that follow. But how ready are Isaiah Thompson, Brandon Newman, and Mason Gillis to help them? How ready is Jahad Proctor to step in and play like a senior? But also those sophomores. You got 4 sophomores who all have to go from one level to another, who go from playing 10 minutes a game to now being leading men, as one way to put it, for this team. How much better are they? How ready are they to carry much more responsibility?
Yeah, going to be an interesting storyline. By this time next week, we'll have at least 2 data points. Obviously, tonight's game also the Boilermakers play University of Wisconsin Green Bay. I guess it's now just Green Bay now. That's right. I'm too old, and I remember those days with the Bennetts, Dick Bennett, Tony Bennett. Watch Tony Bennett play in Mackey Arena.
And so I think Link Darner might be as far away from those guys coaching philosophically as possible. He's going to press. He's going to try to score 150.
But they're decent. They
are. But I'm saying that's about as different from
Southern Indiana.
From Bennett ball as possible.
Yeah, no doubt.
In terms of what Green Bay.
I think that the non-conference this year for Purdue is going to be very interesting because you're going to get a smattering, so many different styles and teams being part of that. So. All right, we had a good show today. I really enjoyed it. I want to thank Brian and Tom for being here, but obviously also Tim House and Dave Shondell. If you missed the show, we will. Gordon will be nice enough to cut it up and put it on for replay. We also have been having a lot of fun. Rachel Jones hasn't had fun because she's had to transcribe these interviews, but we've been putting those up. We have Peyton Stovall's interview from last week. And have had a lot of fun getting those together and having those online. So we will do that with both of these interviews in the coming week as well. So have also Gordon. Want to thank Gordon and Kurt Larman and all the folks at WLFI that help us to make this happen. I don't know if Wes is back there today, Gordon's son, but if he is, he's always a big helper. I want to also thank Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, Triple X. For your sponsors, 10 years of doing this show. We've enjoyed that. Their support has been critical to what we do. Have a great week, everybody. Tom Mitchell will be our guest next week. We'll probably have another guest, surprise guest. You never know. Tom will be talking a little bit about compliance, gambling, all that kind of good stuff. It'll be interesting subject matter for next week. Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week on Gold and Black Live.